Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, October 28th, 2024. Our goal here is to review the market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the auctions narrative for both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary at the end. There's no uploaded recording today. It was an off day. All right, perfect. So, starting with our summary questions, where's the market coming from and what is market trying to accomplish? We'll need to look at last week. Do remember last week was a bit of a reversal week. We had a light push to the upside to push us through all-time highs, and then that was reversed and closed under for last week. Friday was a big finish to the downside. You can notice that there, which leads us to the inside bar that we had today. Ideally, the buyers want to just have a higher low and close above the five simple moving average, but clearly that didn't happen for the S&P 500. For the weekly on the NQ, same situation except it was much more strength for the NQ, but we're still trading within balance essentially, really just moving sideways for the most part, building volume higher. But they wanted to have a higher low and ideally a higher high for the bulls, but they did close above the five simple moving average, and they had a higher low. So decent job for the bulls there. Really wasn't much on the calendar today. Actually, nothing. And very light for the earnings. But this will be picking up as we head into the rest of the week. You can pause and look at that there. So again, very light on the calendar. We do have the election for next week. So things may be just a little quiet for today, but we'll see what we're looking at as we roll into Tuesday through Friday. Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll look at the daily for the footprint, and we can see we had 28 points of range, so very compressed for the day. 28 points of range, normal shape profile with the VPOC at the middle. Makes sense. Buyers had control for the majority of the day, and it looks like they lost it towards the end, or maybe the sellers had control. I'm not exactly sure, but we finished about unchanged for the most part for the delta. Not really much to show. Solid positioning for the sellers, not so much for the buyers. That definitely tried today. Um, a little bit of a B-ish shape profile for the Nasdaq. It's a little bit interesting to see. Volume is near the lower quarter, so say what you will there. Buyers had control for a little bit. Sellers really pushed it towards the end to really force things down and close it near its lows. Okay, we will look at the sector tracker. S&P finished up 27 basis points, really not too much negative outside of energy, and basically unchanged for the tech sector, with Apple leading the way, the other three really not doing too much there. Again, today was a bit chill, but we did have the financials lead the board, which is always nice to see, seeing the banks really show out and kind of lead the way. So solid job for them, even with the consumer services and then some of the consumer the staples and the discretionary. So again, real chill day, nice for the materials and the utilities as well. So yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. All right, let's see. So we understand really not too much for the sector tracker, but solid day for the financials. So definitely moving forward, we want to see financials keep it solid like that. If financials can do well alongside technology, we'll be looking really good. While healthcare is able to take their break, because over the 5 days, healthcare is the leader to the downside. So just keep an eye on healthcare and industrials, honestly. All right, so looking here for the S&P 500, we can see that we have the monthly composite. I went ahead and cleaned some of this up over the weekend. So the monthly composite is sitting here. It's 5,900, 58. Let's call it 88, 58.90, just for the hell of it. Yeah, 58.88. So for 58.88, that's the VPOC for the month. And you can see the S&P 500 try to, we had our gap up on Sunday, pushed above into this range, and no kind of effort to stay within this range. And as soon as we got into the range, we immediately sold off, pushed back up, made a lower high, and then sold off with the VPOC being in the middle of the range, and we closed a little below the VPOC for the day. So again, really not too much to look at for the S&P 500 there. We're just kind of stuck in the middle of balance right now. And then looking at the NASDAQ, we have our balance zones here for the composite, and then for the month composite, it's the 20K 400. You can see we tried to push up again, tried to make a run for these singles that are up here near these 700s to no avail. All right, sorry about that. To no avail, and then we ended up falling back down into this support that we have here at the 500s. So as of right now, we're just kind of balancing. Again, seems like price is just trying to push prices higher from what we can see with solid support below us. Okay. So again, it was a pretty chill day, really not too much to talk about here. Again, just lower highs and lower lows for the whole session for the most part. Just kind of heading back down to this support, possibly with these 480s, 470s. Really a good job for the buyers to hold this area. Same thing for the ES. ES doesn't have to show out as hard because we're near the all-time highs. But essentially, they really just want to protect their 5,800 for the most part. Their 5,800 down here. Anything else over here is just kind of fair game. They're just kind of balancing. It's really more pivotal for the NQ to really hold these 20K 400s for the potential to really squeeze all these bears that are possibly still back holding from here. We've already done this song and dance with the S&P 500. All right, and then the same thing with the NASDAQ, lower highs and lower lows for the whole session for the most part. Really not too much to talk about here from the delta. You can see a bit negative delta here to start with the VPOC being above the half point, and buyers weren't able to keep prices above that VPOC, and then we just traded lower where the majority of people started the session, and that's pretty much it. That's all she wrote for today. S&P 500 essentially just moves sideways, just a little downwards, a little uglier to look at. Yeah, not much there. All right, again, there was no data, so we're not going to turn a mountain from a molehill. But essentially, we had our big gap up, as you can see here. I'm not sure what the news was. I think it was like lessen expectations of the geopolitical wars, if I recall. And that was a gap up from the 58.40s to the 58.57s. So a nice 15-point gap or so. And the buyers were able to hold it. So again, this is a solid win for the buyers for the most part. So say what you will, but the buyers are doing a good job of maintaining that gap, which is an actual gap. They essentially pushed up in the overnight session and then just bear flagged really until the market opened. Just trading higher and lower, higher and lower. Again, the majority of this was from, this is the S&P 500. Again, the majority of this was just from the first couple of bars, the first 10, 15 minutes of the overnight session. So while this may have been lower highs and lower lows for the whole session, all this is essentially just consolidation, and buyers only gave up the gift that they received with the gap up. So again, really good job for the buyers there. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Really not too much to look at into the overnight session. Again, they were just kind of trading around their gap. Not really able to eat up the initiation candle from the open. So that's where we started our session here. And you can see essentially possibly an open drive. The fact that they're not able to trade higher for the S&P 500, and as they're being rejected to the upside, we're having nice legs to the downside. They're unable to get above the 5 smoothing average. Once they are able to get above the SMOF with an average, we attempt to have a trend. Any closes below are quickly reversed. And then we pretty much play this whole game as we head our way up to the open. Once we do reach the open, there's no piercing through it at all. We have two touches, tests with the VWAP bands and the IP mid, and then we have a revisit to the open, which fails, and then that is what causes the this downwards leg that we have. You would think that the S&P 500 is going to retain their lows and maybe have another new leg up, but even then they're not able to stay above the 5 smoothing average. So we just really just stay below there this entire time, trading below the VWAP bands, excuse me, trading between the VWAP bands and then the initial balance low for the most part, with a few excursions below it, but they were kind of short-lived. So essentially just making new lows and pushing back up, just making, revisiting some of these lows and then pushing back up. No real trading. This is just really like lower balance, essentially just bear flagging from the day. So yeah, really not too much there. And I am in one trade right now as a disclaimer, so you may hear me getting stopped out in just a moment. It's just my trailing stop. Yeah, essentially just my trailing stop. Okay, my apologies. All right, so then we have the NQ, same situation for the most part. They just appear to be a little bit weaker from what we can tell. A little sharper moves to the downside, much more steep. And they ended up pushing up, unable to revisit their open. They ended up rejecting their full session VWAP. And that's essentially all she wrote. Once they got back under the 5 smoothing average, they pretty much just hung around that area, rejecting the RTH VWAP, and pretty much just traded between these lows and then the RTH VWAP for the remainder of the session. So yeah, really not too much there. We don't want to make a mountain out of the molehill for this. So how well did the buyers do? We will give the buyers, give them just a little bit of a handicap because they had a gap and then they protected their gap the entire time. So again, solid job for them there. The price action itself is definitely a bit weak with the volume being below average. So I don't know. We kind of have some catalysts coming up for the remainder of the week. So we want to take this with a grain of salt. But other than that, we'll probably give them probably like a 4 or 5 at most. Only reason it's that high is because they protected their gap. So we'll see how they perform in the overnight session. Other than that, really earnings can kind of throw a wrench into everything. So we don't really know what we're looking at once earnings come. So we'll see. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and cut it there. Yeah, later.